We are going to solve using distributing and combining like terms. So step 1, draw a vertical line at the equal sign and circle the variable. So that's what we've been doing all week. Those are your first steps. Then use a distributive property to get rid of any parentheses. So distributive property, remember you have to send it in, multiply it by all the terms. That's what your distributive property means. You're multiplying the term on the outside times everything on the inside. Then you are going to combine like terms. And then solve the two-step equation using inverse operations, just like we did yesterday. You start with add or subtract. Then do multiply or divide. Don't multiply or divide first. You need to add or subtract first. If there are no parentheses, then you just go straight to combine like terms. So, step 1 on example 1, draw your line down your equal sign. Circle your variable. So we are solving for n. It doesn't matter if it's n's on the right or n's on the left, just as long as there's just one n. The left side I can't do anything, but the right side I have a 1 and I have a positive 5 and I have a negative 2n. So I'm just going to keep the 6. Then I'm going to do 1. That's a positive 1. If I get rid of this 2n completely, I no longer see the minus. The minus is attached to the 2n. The minus is not attached to the 1. It's attached to the negative 2n. Then we're going to combine it with the positive 5. So you use the sign that's in front of that number or term. So if I have a 1 and a 5, that's going to make 6. But I'm going to go ahead and carry down this negative 2n because that can't be combined with anything. Then I'm going to combine the 1 and the 5 to make 6. So now we just have a two-step equation because we've combined like terms. So we're going to start with add or subtract. So we look and see. I'm going to circle my variable again. I need to look and see how I can make it where this term is all by itself. So I need to get rid of this plus 6 by doing minus 6. Six minus 6 is 0 equals negative 2n. 6 minus 6 is 0 again, so we mark that out. Then we need to still get n by itself. So we look and see what's happening. So we do the opposite. So we see that it's multiplied, so the opposite is divide by negative 2. And I show dividing by writing it as a fraction. Don't put the little division symbol. Our division symbol now is this line that makes it a fraction. If I have 0 and I divide by a number, you get 0. It's like 0 cookies divided by negative 2 friends. Nobody gets nothing. Like, there's no cookies to give away. So 0 equals n. Then we check our work. So 6 equals 1 minus 2 times n, well n is 0, plus 5. And we have a question mark because we don't know if that's true or not. So it's 6 equals, well, let's find what's 2 times 0? 0. So this would be 1 minus 0 plus 5. 6 equals 1 minus 0 is 1, plus 5 is 6. That's what we wanted. We wanted to check and make sure they're equal on both sides. And so that tells us that 0 equals n. Okay, let's go to example 2. Draw your line down your equal sign. If you feel comfortable, you can go ahead and move on and then just come back and check with me. If you don't feel comfortable doing this on your own, then you can follow along with me. Circle your variable. We need to get the variable by itself. So this is a negative 6x. I have this negative 4 that I need to get to the other side. So we add 4 to both sides. Negative 20 plus 4. If they're different signs, then you subtract them and keep the sign of the larger number. So I'm going to take 20 minus 4, and that's 16. But this would be negative. So if you want to think about it as money, that would be great. Negative 20 means I owe somebody $20, but I have $4. So I can give them that $4, and now I only owe 16. Negative 6x. So we did the add, subtract. Now we do the multiply, divide. This is multiplication, so we're going to divide by a negative 6. But you might be like, oh, that's not an answer. Like, I can't divide that. Well, it's okay if you get a fraction as an answer. So this is going to be x equals, well, negative divided by a negative becomes positive. So 16 over 6. But we could reduce it. They're both even, so I'd divide by 2. And I get x equals 16 divided by 2 is 8. 6 divided by 2, it's going the opposite way. I should have probably written it like this instead, because that doesn't make sense. So 8 over 3. And we can leave it just like that, so all we did was reduce it. So then we need to check our work. Negative 20 equals negative 4 minus 6 times 8 over 3. So negative 20 equals negative 4. Whenever you multiply, if you're multiplying fractions, you can do top times top over bottom times bottom. Or when you multiply, you can actually simplify by looking at the diagonals. So like 3 and 6 have 3 in common. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So I could mark these out and it'd just be 2. And now I just have minus 2 times 8 is 16. And we have a question mark there. So now, does this equal negative 20? Negative 4 minus 16. Yeah, it does. So that means we checked it. It's good. So it's okay if you get a fraction or a decimal answer. You can leave it. The only thing I suggest is simplifying that. Okay, let's go on to example 3. Draw your line down your equal sign. Circle your x. This negative out front, it means that it's really a negative 1 that we are going to distribute. Negative 1 times everything on the inside. So negative 1 times 7 is negative 7. Negative 1 times a negative 4x is a positive 4x. So we just distributed the negative 1. So now we want to combine like terms. There aren't any terms to combine. So we need to get the x by itself still. So we add or subtract first. So we look at what's on the same side as the x. This is -7. So the opposite of -7 would be +7. Four x equals 9 plus 7 is 16. Then our last step, this is multiply, so the opposite of multiply is to divide. 16 divided by 4 is 4. We need to check our answer. Negative parentheses 7 minus 4 times 4 equals 9 with the question mark. Negative parentheses. Whenever you do, whenever you're plugging it in, you're doing your order of operations PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. So we would need to go ahead and multiply that. 4 times 4, 16. And 7 minus 16. So we have a -7 minus 16. So that's like saying I have $7, but then I want to spend $16. So what does that mean? I only have $7, but I want to spend 16. It means I'm short $9. I don't have enough money. So I need to do something around the house to see if my parents will pay me. Negative and negative make positive. So 9 equals 9. So we checked it and it worked. So x equals 4. All right, the next one. Draw your line down your equal sign. Look where your x is. We have parentheses, so what do we got to do first? Yep, distribute it. So I get 12 equals -4 times a -6. Positive 24, but we got to keep that x. And then -4 times a -3. Positive 12. So we need to get this x by itself. So we need to do the add subtract first. So see how we have a plus 12. So do minus 12. We get 0 equals 24x. Divide by 24 on both sides, and what do we get? 0 divided by 24 gives us 0. We want to check our answer. 12 equals -4. If I'm multiplying times 0, what is that going to give me? It's going to give me 0. 0 minus 3 is -3. So I kind of did a little bit of that in my head. Anything times 0 is going to be 0. So 0 minus 3 is -3. What's 4 times 3? 12. If they're the same sign, it's 12. So that means it did work. All right, let's go to example 5. Circle the variable, draw your line down your equal sign. We don't have any distribution, no combining like terms, so we need to do the add subtract first. So this is a plus 1. So the opposite of plus 1 would be minus 1. So we have 5 over 2x equals 7 minus 1 is 6. We still need to get x by itself. So we would divide by 5 over 2. But if you divide by 5 over 2, that's the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal, 2 over 5. So x equals, 6 is over 1, so we do top times top over bottom times bottom. 6 times 2 is 12. 1 times 5 is 5. So 12 over 5 is our solution. Which most of the time we're scared of fractions, but these aren't awful. We can still do it. We're going to check it. So we have 5 over 2 times 12 over 5 plus 1 equals 7. I'm going to show you a shortcut with this one. See how these diagonals are both 5s? 5 divided by 5 is 1. We can actually cancel them out, and they become 1s. Now we have 1 times 12, which is 12. 2 times 1, which is 1. No, 2. Almost messed up there. What is 12 divided by 2? 6. So that equals 6. 6 plus 1 is 7. So we were able to check it even with fractions and without our calculator. Okay, our last example. Order of operations says we need to distribute first. But what are we distributing? -4. 6a is just going to be carried down. -4 times a positive 2. It's -8a. And -4 times a -1 is +4. So this is like saying I have 6 apples minus 8 apples. What does that mean? 6 apples minus 8 apples. Do I even have any apples left? I'm actually in the negative. -2 apples. +4 equals 3. Subtract 4 on both sides. I get -1. I get 2a. I'm almost done. We're going to divide both sides by a -2. A equals negative over negative actually becomes a positive 1 over 2. Check. So you know what half means? 1 over 2 means half. It means that whenever I substitute in half, I'm going to actually take half of that number. That's going to make my life a whole lot easier whenever I check it. It says equals 3. It looks kind of bad. I ran out of room. And that's a question mark. So for every half, we're actually going to find what half of that number is. So 6 times a half. What is half of 6? 3. So 3 minus 4 parentheses. What is half of 2? 1. So 1 minus 1 parentheses equals 3. What is 1 minus 1? 0. What happens whenever you multiply 4 times 0? You get 0. So 3 minus 0 equals 3. Is that true? 3 equals 3. Check. So A equals half. All right, you're going to use these notes to help you do the problems on your assignment. Turn them in at the end of class.